morning today. My name is Lieutenant Brad Koch, the Public Affairs Office. We wanted to give you an update on the homicide that we had that occurred yesterday morning. Providing that update today is Major Cam Selvey. He is the major in charge of criminal investigations. Major Selvey.
Thanks, Fred. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. Wanted to give an update about an incident that occurred yesterday in the early morning hours. There was a call that came in the Freedom Division outside of a club on Little Rock Road. The club's being called Club Nikki's. And at that point, Freedom Division responded, started investigating, and they were investigating an assault with a deadly weapon because we had a victim that showed up at Atrium Health, formerly CMC, with a gunshot wound. Officers worked that scene and then cleared, and a couple hours later, a passerby called in on their way to work, saw a subject off to the side of the road that was slumped over, thought there was something wrong, and notified police. We went and responded, and we found Mr. Melson Quince, who had been shot and killed. As we progressed through this investigation, we believe that Mr. Quince was a victim in the earlier incident, and I have to stress, during that incident, there were numerous shots fired. We knew that one person was struck and transported to the hospital, and there were literally dozens of shell casings on the scene from at least 3 different calibers of firearms. When detectives got back out there yesterday morning and started working through, like I said, we identified Mr. Quince. Unfortunately, he had been positioned in an area that was about 300 feet away from the initial scene. And I want to stress that at 4 o'clock in the morning, it was dark, it was raining, and the officers were really kind of inwardly focused on that scene. I've watched the body-worn camera from the officers who initially responded. I've looked at some of the crime scene photographs to see that exactly what situation those officers were dealing with. Even when I was out there on the scene yesterday morning, standing in front of the club, it would be impossible to see Mr. Quince where he was sitting from that point, and that was in broad daylight. Actually, the clouds had cleared and the sun was out, strangely enough. So I want to stress that the officers on scene initially were doing a very, very good, thorough investigation to the best of their ability. And I say to the best of their ability because when I watched that body-worn camera, there were literally hundreds of people walking around out there. That club had been full. There were cars parked in the grass on both sides of the road, and I am ashamed of my community because very few people came forward to say anything and help us out. My detectives have worked tirelessly over the past 24 hours trying to generate leads, trying to talk to people with what I think is very little success for their efforts. That's one of the reasons we want to come forward today with this update, but also with a plea to the community to come forward, because we're not going to be able to do this without the people who were there. We've had some people who've come in, they've given us some really good statements, but not enough to get us to where we need to be. So out of those hundreds of people that were in that club, if you're listening today, for Mr. Melson Quince, you need to come forward and talk to us. We know that you saw something, we know that you heard something, and in this day of the cell phone and the ever-present video camera that we all carry around with us, I have no doubt that there are pictures and videos of things that went on in that club and around that club last night, or night before last. I also want to say that Mr. Quince was here traveling alone. He wasn't in a group of people. We didn't have anybody coming forward and letting us know that he may be injured or in danger. So one of the things that we want to do is we're going to share a photograph that we have of Mr. Quince, and we'd ask that you circulate that photograph so that if people were in the club and they saw him, that may trigger a memory, that may help them to remember something that happened, to come forward and talk to us about this incident. We also want to hear from anybody who may have been with Mr. Quince Sunday or into the early morning hours of Monday. He was from, like I mentioned, he was from New York. He was from out of town. So we're really relying on the public to step forward. We have our TIPS line, 704-432-TIPS. And then Crime Stoppers is obviously 704-334-1600, and there's a $5,000 reward for any information that's going to help us clear this case. That's all I got, if you have any questions for me.
All right.
Okay,
Could you
thanks.
say your name for us really quick?
My first name is Cam, C-A-M. It's like Cam Newton, but I'm older and don't make as much money. And the last name is Selvey, S as in Sam, E-L-V as in Victor, E-Y.
You said he was from New York. Do you think he was in town for All-Stars?
I mean, I think that's a logical assumption, but we just don't know. That's one of the reasons we'd really love to talk to anybody who spent time with him over the weekend.
The fact he wasn't found right away when you guys were first there, did that compromise any part of the investigation or evidence, or was it kind of untouched until you found it?
As near as, without getting into, specifics of the investigation, I don't think that gap really affected what we have to work with. Like I said, there were hundreds of people out there, so whether we knew Mr. Quince was there or not, we still need to talk to those people, and we didn't have nearly as many people coming forth as I would like to have seen in a situation like that. So I don't think it would really have had a negative impact on anything.
You said he was here alone, so he was not here with any friends, he was not at that club, I should say, like any
well,
friends or anybody else?
That's correct. To the best of our knowledge, that's why we want people to come forward. But from what our investigation has shown to this point, we're unaware of anybody that he was with at the club.
And how's his family doing? Have you spoken to them? Have investigators spoken to his
The
family?
detectives, yes, the lead detective, Detective Lyon, has spoken to them a couple of times. Spoke to them yesterday, spoke to them again this morning. Anytime we lose a loved one, it's difficult, and especially if we lose a loved one to senseless violence like this. Whatever the problem was, whatever the altercation was that led to this, it didn't need to end with one person shot and in the hospital and another person dead. I don't know what the problem was, but I guarantee that it did not merit that type of response.
Was he in possession of a weapon when you found him?
I can't really get into specifics about what his condition was or what he may or may not have had on him at the time that he was found.
Do you think he was the intended target?
No way for me to know that at this point in time. Again, that's why we need people to come forward. If we had some really good witnesses who could come forward and tell us kind of what happened, I think that question could be answered.
What is the reward again for coming?
$5,000 Crime Stoppers reward, yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, Major. Thank you.
As Major Selvey said, we will be sending out an updated press release with his picture as well. So thank you all for coming today. Appreciate it, and have a great day. Have a
Do you
good
have
day.
any information on the Hickory Grove shooting?
Sure, absolutely. So earlier this morning, at a little before 10 o'clock in the morning, we had a female who was driving to the Hickory Grove team office to seek some police help. And there was an individual who she was in a relationship with, who she was trying to get away from, which is why she was trying to come to the police office. He ran into her vehicle in the parking lot, and then as he was pulling away, fired several rounds. Does not believe that it struck anybody or anything. He crashed a short time later, and after a very brief foot chase, was taken into custody with no injuries. So, in essence, was a domestic violence situation that we ended up arresting the individual.
No name yet, though, on the suspect?
No. We will. I'm sure we'll send out a release because I know all you guys have been asking about that.
Sorry, I know there was a release about this. Can you just give a brief synopsis update about the Sugar Creek Eastway kind of chain of events that happened this morning with the stabbing?
I do not have an update for that, so that'll be something that I know that we sent out a release, and that's the latest information that we have on that case.
Could you talk about the reward for the South Boulevard attempted kidnapping?
The South Boulevard what?
Attempted kidnapping? The stabbing?
Yeah, absolutely. We're still looking for information on that, and we have a $1,000 reward. Anybody with any information on that, we are asking that call Crime Stoppers at 704-334-1600. So, any other questions?
I know there was the one that's the Mint Hill city limits, but officers were dealing with a lot of homicides over the weekend. Can you speak to, how that concerns the department maybe, or I think it was 4 in 4 days right around Charlotte, if not in Charlotte.
Well, yeah, for the year, we've had 16 homicides that we've investigated. We've cleared 7 of those by arrest. You know, anytime we lose an individual to violence is certainly a tragedy. Our detectives are working very difficult to solve all cases. You know, I think it goes back to the fact that we ask people, I think Major Selvey said it very eloquently, that whatever altercation or whatever problem individuals have does not merit a response of violence, particularly gunfire. Of those 16 cases, 15 involved guns. So, you know, we actually, you know, one of the responsibilities and one of the jobs of our officers is to help our community de-escalate situations. And, you know, we ask that individuals call 911 before resulting to violence.
Lieutenant, I know that, I probably should have asked Major Selby this, but with it being All-Star Weekend, is there a chance that the shooter from the Club Nikki incident is also not from in town? And how is that going to play a role in the difficulty of investigating this case and the importance of really that public coming forward?
Yeah, I mean, anytime we have a homicide, you know, one of the tenets of allowing us to solve these cases is assistance from the community. And certainly possible that the individuals responsible for this homicide are not from Charlotte, but, you know, we won't know that unless we get help from the community. So we ask anybody with any information who was there, who saw it. As Major Selvey said, people probably took cell phone videos or pictures, and all that can help us identify the individuals responsible for this heinous crime.
Are there surveillance cameras at the establishment that you guys are looking into, nearby businesses, anything along those lines?
Yeah, I don't want to get into any sort of evidence or things that we might have, but you know, certainly that's something that our detectives are actively trying to identify and sort through and look through.
For the South Boulevard thing.
Wow,
what is the-
keep going.
I'm sorry. What is the latest on the investigation with that? Can you tell us what the current?
You know, Captain Dance held a press conference yesterday afternoon, and we do not have any updates other than what he shared yesterday. So we're still asking for the public's assistance in identifying this individual. You know, we really, again, a lot of these cases, we need public's assistance to help us solve these cases. So anyone with information, we're asked to call Crime Stoppers. Anybody else have any other questions? All right, thank you all very much. Have a great day.